You can watch Arsenal versus Burnley and Man City versus Crystal Palace on Now TV for just €10. So what's stopping you? Putting up more Christmas decorations? Your house already looks like Santa's grotto. A family party? Your Aunt Mary has seen you 4 times this week already. Don't let anything get in your way. To treat yourself to a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass and watch the games that matter to you for just €10, search Now TV Football today. Content streamed by internet. Full terms at nowtv.com.
Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
And then the Ray one, of course, I like the fact that it sort of harkens back to Luke from 1977. But the way the Falcon is, it almost looks like she's got a Millennium Falcon kite. So no thanks.
Oh, Dan, I wish you wouldn't have said that about the kite. That was the one that if I were to choose one, I love it because it's so striking. But now I just see a Millennium Falcon kite.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello and welcome to show number 100 of Coffee with Kenobi, your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I'm your host, Dan Z, drinking coffee out of my black Run Disney Dark Side half marathon mug. Thank you for joining me today as we sit back and have some Star Wars conversation for our 100th episode. I can't believe it's been 100. Amazing. We really hope to make you think about the mythology of Star Wars in a whole new way and maybe laugh a little bit in the process. On today's show, I catch up with one of our co-hosts, Adam Bray, to ask him about his latest book, Stormtroopers-Beyond the Armor. I chat with the director of marketing for Stern Pinball, Zach Sharpe, who helped design the brand new Star Wars pinball game. CWK newsman Tom Gross will bring us the latest Star Wars news, and in the coffee chat, we complete our book study of Phasma with chapters 33 to 44. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
I want to thank everybody for our feedback on our CWK Coffee Break YouTube channel. As you know, we've been planning this for a while. It finally went live this week, and at the time of this recording, you will have seen 2 episodes. We definitely have a lot of a learning curve that we need to figure out, and that's actually exciting. I love challenges. I love trying to create things and bring them to a different place, stronger than they were at the beginning. And I'm excited. I'm encouraged. Podcasting we've been doing for 4 years, and this is a brand new thing. So I am looking forward to this challenge and to your feedback. I certainly would love to know what you'd like to see me cover for the CWK Coffee Break segments. They're basically a Star Wars thought for the day or something for you to think about throughout your day as you're going through the daily activities. It's always good to have a little bit of Star Wars sprinkled in there, and this is a quick hit of a coffee break, hence the name. I also want to point out that in addition to the other things we're doing at the Peoria Riverfront Museum for the premiere of The Last Jedi, on the 14th, of course, the night before the official debut of the film, at 7 o'clock is the first showing. From 5:30 to 6:30, Corey and I will be there, and we will be broadcasting live like we did for Rogue One. And we will be streaming it live. Haven't decided yet if it's going to be YouTube or Facebook, but I will certainly let everyone know about that. In fact, let me know what you prefer seeing that, because you will most likely be in line or in the theater as well. So would you rather look at it through YouTube Live or probably through Facebook? Let us know. We are excited about that. We're going to have some guests. And, of course, we'll be just moments away from The Last Jedi, which is really kind of crazy.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Joining me today for a cup of coffee is the author of Stormtroopers-Beyond the Armor, as well as many other books, of course, Adam Bray.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You bet, Adam. It's always great to speak with you. I believe this is your 3rd or 4th appearance on the show, and it's always fun to chat with you, especially because you are such a busy guy. You are just a writing enthusiast and a passionate Star Wars fan, so it's really, really cool to see you just being so amazing and successful.
Well, thank you. I try to be amazing and successful.
Well, you're doing a great job, as is our next guest host. He is the host of Rebels Reactions and longtime friend of Coffee with Kenobi, Aaron Harris.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Doing great, man. We are excited because this is show number 100 of Coffee with Kenobi, which is astounding to me. Technically, as far as shows that Corey and I have done together and from the beginning up till now, this will be our 194th show, but this is the 100th show of just the the regular Coffee with Kenobi, and it's really, really cool. And we've met so many great people over the years and had a lot of exciting opportunities, and being able to talk to you two, of course. And, the two of you I wouldn't have gotten to meet without Star Wars and without this show. And it's just amazing what Star Wars does and how it brings people together.
Yeah, congratulations on the 100th. It's an honor to be on for this one in particular.
It's 100 episodes, man. That is awesome, and you're absolutely right. I mean, that's one thing I've enjoyed about the Star Wars community is all the people I've gotten to meet. Some of my closest friends that I have now, I've met because of Star Wars, because of Coffee with Kenobi, and it's just an awesome community to be a part of.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with you. We got an email from Dennis Keithley, and he wrote, "Hello, Dan. Congratulations on episode 100 of Coffee with Kenobi. I started listening in the podcast a couple of years ago to help satiate my appetite for Star Wars discussion, and I quickly became a fan of the show and the insightful discussion between you and Corey. Coffee with Kenobi excels by engaging Star Wars with enthusiasm and critical analysis without resorting to sensationalism. In addition, the respect for the many guests from all corners of the Star Wars community is what keeps me coming back week after week. Congratulations again on this milestone, and here's to the next 100 episodes." Well, thank you, Dennis. That's really, really kind. 100 episodes. Wow, by then, who knows how many books Adam will have written.
Yeah.
It's true. So Adam's new book, as we said, is Stormtroopers-Beyond the Armor. Talk to me about this new book and how it's different from other books you've written in the past.
Sure, yeah. Well, what sets it immediately apart is it's the first book for Star Wars that I've done that is out of universe. So it's a documentary book, kind of a little bit of everything. It's got behind the scenes information for the making of the movie, and really the Stormtrooper costumes and how they've evolved in the Star Wars saga. But also, stories about the fan community and how they've engaged with Stormtroopers and of course the 501st Legion. Everything it talks about the Stormtrooper merchandise over the past 40 years and how Stormtroopers have evolved through the movies and the animated features and the comic books and the novels. So it covers everything. I wrote it together with Ryder Wyndham. He'd actually done a similar book, a similar format. I guess it was around the time of Revenge of the Sith, called The Complete Vader. And it did the same thing for Darth Vader, chronicling his evolution and appearances throughout Star Wars. They wanted Lucasfilm and our publishers wanted to do something like that to kind of mark the launch of The Last Jedi and to focus on another, iconic character for Star Wars. So we picked Stormtroopers.
Which is a great selection, obviously, because they are probably as famous as Darth Vader, at least as far as the iconic armor. And I'm assuming you've been a Stormtrooper fan for as long as you've been a Star Wars fan, correct?
Yeah, it's I remember having the Stormtrooper action figures, the Kenner action figures, back when they first came out, and they were probably one of my favorite figures just because they were so iconic. I mean, you mentioned I think Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers are some of the most immediately recognizable characters out of Star Wars. So they're a great choice.
They really are, and as you mentioned, this book is a very unique hybrid because it covers Stormtroopers from a number of different perspectives. And so walk us through, if you will, the length of time it takes from when you first get contacted about creating a book or proposing a book through the process of writing it and the kind of deadlines. And what is that like as a writer? I mean, I assume there's pressure, but there's also joy because you love what you're doing. What is that process like?
Yeah, this one was really set apart too because of how long it took. start to finish, I was involved on and off for about 2 years with this book, and that's the longest I've ever been involved with a book. So we started talking about it a couple of months before The Force Awakens came out. And we discussed, a little bit about the outline and what would be in the book. And fortunately for me, my co-author writer ended up writing the outline for us. So that took a lot of pressure off of me because it's quite, as you've probably seen, it's quite a large book with extensive information. And to do an outline for a book like this can be a bit of a daunting task, especially when I'm the younger writer, and writer is the senior, more experienced Star Wars writer. So he took that the outline part, and then we just kind of divided the book in half. And writer took the original era, the original trilogy era content from the first half of the book. And I took everything kind of from the special editions onward through the prequels and the new Star Wars animated era and the new movies. But we had several stages. I guess so we started in the fall before the Force Awakens, and I think we finished the first part of the book by that summer. But there's several stages. Usually we'll turn things in to the editors, and they'll fix things up and do any corrections, and send back questions and queries and things and fixes, and then it goes off to Lucasfilm, and they kind of do the same thing and fact check and pass it to people on the story group, and I'm sure others that I don't even know about within Lucasfilm to check things, and there's some back and forth to get things right, but then because we were starting before The Force Awakens, but we wanted to include Rebels Season 3 content and some Rogue One content and some references to The Last Jedi. So we actually had to wait for these things to come out so that I could actually see them, firsthand and spend some time with the material. So that meant I worked on it kind of on and off, not constantly those whole 2 years. So I'd take a few months off here and there to work on other books and then come back to it. But it's definitely one of the longest involvements I've ever had on a book.
Well, it's an interesting concept too, because normally when you have a book, that's it. You jump right into it, and that's your baby, for lack of a better term, for those months or weeks or however long it takes. But this is one you're able to put down and come back to. Did you find your process writing this any different when you came back? Did it feel like you're going back to an old friend, and how was that for you? It's very unique.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you're right. Because normally when I'm doing a book, it's like this for Star Wars, but it was also like this in other kinds of books I've done when I was doing travel writing. Often these things are on short deadlines. And with Star Wars, it's especially tricky because everything is planned to be released at an appropriate time. Things are tied to premieres of movies or TV shows, or to be launched at a special event like a San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con or Star Wars Celebration, or be ready for Christmas or something. So there's very specific times that these books have to hit the shelves, and they can't be late because then they'll miss that opportunity. But at the same time, especially in this new Disney era, security is very tight, and so they don't want to let out a lot of information out too early, and they want to be careful who has access to what. So the access to that information is very time sensitive, and it can be kind of last minute sometimes. So that can give a very short window for most books. So most books can be quite quite rushed. Not in a bad way. That's just the way it is. But with this book, because it was over such a long period of time, because it was planned well in advance for the Last Jedi launch, so there was a lot more time to work on it, and that can be good because I really enjoyed this book. I really like the behind the scenes sort of making of books, but with any project, there's also a sense of you want to have completion. You want to finish up and be done, and see the finished product, and then move on. So because it takes so long, you kind of gotta fight against this natural need for completion of a project, and be willing to go back into it and revisit things. So that was definitely a new experience for me.
And now it seems only appropriate that the 501st creates armor just for you, I think, after all of this.
Well, yeah, they did make me an honorary member through the course of it, which was a real honor. That was really great. The
I
folks,
saw that.
the folks in Michigan here inducted me into the 501st. So that was really great, especially because of all the charity work that they do, visiting kids in hospitals and stuff, and the wonderful reputation they have, and to be amongst all the other people that have been made honorary members as well. They just I'm not going to get her name right. They just inducted a new member. I think it was today, Samantha, who's the female stormtrooper in the Force Awakens, who I believe has gone on to be in the other movies as well, in stormtrooper armor. So yeah, it's really cool to be a member, but I actually don't. I still don't own even a Stormtrooper helmet. I feel almost guilty about that, but they are a bit of investment, either time in or money. But so one of these days, hopefully, I'll get one of those for myself.
It's a good investment. Although I have the Innovos original trilogy Stormtrooper armor, and I've had it for, oh my gosh, almost 2 years, and it's still sitting in my attic because I can't figure out how to put it together, and I don't really have the patience for it.
I remember hearing you talking about wanting to get one of those.
That's right. Well, Aaron, did you have any questions for Adam about this book?
I'm just really looking forward to getting my hands on this book. Stormtroopers have always been one of my favorites, and I'm excited to see all the background that has been pulled together on this, and it's going to be a great read. I have a couple of Adam's books already, and have thoroughly enjoyed them. So, really looking forward to this. Questions? Not really. You pretty much took all the questions I had, so we're good. I'm good there. So.
Perfect. Well, so this one, Adam, obviously is a little bit different than the ones you've had before, but it's still Star Wars. Is there a certain character or timeline? I know you're a huge Star Wars Rebels fan. Is there a certain character you would love to explore in a similar style to Stormtroopers Beyond the Armor?
Yeah, there probably are lots of characters. The trick, though, would be to find one that's kind of been through most of the saga so that we could cover it from all the different angles, their development through the movies and animation and publishing, as well as the merchandising and the fan costuming and all of that. So you'd probably have to maybe pick something like R2-D2 and C-3PO, or maybe Yoda, or I don't know if Han Solo there'd be enough there or not. But yeah, I think Yoda or the droids would probably be good.
That's a good call. And that's again, this mythology is so rich and so expansive, and it's always growing. And we love it. I mean, we're still talking about it, and I don't see that happening, especially since next week is, a little up-and-comer independent film called The Last Jedi is coming out. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that is exciting. I can't wait.
And when are both of you going to see it?
I'm going Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm going to see it Thursday night as well. I have a little tradition with my local movie theater, so I always do book signings on the premiere weekend for the Star Wars movies, as well as if there's a Marvel premiere that kind of coincides with a new Marvel book. So actually I did a 3-day book signing weekend at the theater for the Thor, and I'll do the same for The Last Jedi. So that's kind of fun. It's to me, movie theaters are also, they're part of the Christmas and holiday experience. So I like being in a theater, especially one, that's got a Christmas tree and some decorations and stuff. It's a lot of fun around this time.
I totally agree. And in fact, it'll be interesting when Solo comes out in May, because we've become so used to Star Wars films coming out around Christmas time over the past 3 years. It's going to be kind of fun to see what it's like to see one again when it's warm out, but there's nothing quite like Christmas and Star Wars. So we will go ahead and take our first break. And up next, I will check in with the #1 ranked pinball player in the world, Zach Sharpe, about the new Star Wars pinball machine. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi. Oh, pass the cream, would you? Coffee with Kenobi is also sponsored by the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. Let's talk about the Coffee with Kenobi Patreon page and what that means for us as well as for you as members of our Coffee with Kenobi family. But before we do, I'd like to give a very special shout out to Tyler Wiggins, Ben Elkington, Terry Lee, Dennis Keithley, Aaron Harris, Angela Souse, Mediocre Jedi, Christo Hatting, Christian Dale, Jason Hall, Brian McKinney, Jim Capron, Connie Shee, Mike Audette, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Struthers, Nick Deco, and Mark Suter. The thing about Coffee with Kenobi and why we have a Patreon page is because there are a number of expenses that come up when you try to run a podcast, a web page, a YouTube channel, anything that is a part of the creative process that helps you get more involved in your fandom and help spread the word to other people so they can get inspired as well. And as I mentioned, that sometimes costs money, and I'm talking about things like hosting your web page, the microphone upkeep, the cables, when you have computer problems. All of these things have certainly been a factor of Coffee with Kenobi over the past 4 years. There are also things we can use the Patreon contributions for, such as travel for airline, hotels, food, and transportation. And I've been very fortunate to do a lot of traveling, especially over the past year, from Coffee with Kenobi, and a lot of that is because of your generosity. And you get incentives, too. For $5 a month, you get recognition at the start of each show and receive a follow from us on Twitter. $10 and up, you get access to our Discord page, and it's basically a message board, and there's a great app for it that's very accessible. And as we get closer and closer to the end of Rebels, as well as Episode 8, Star Wars The Last Jedi, there's going to be so much to talk about. 35 and up, you get coffee mugs, T-shirts, and depending on how much you contribute a month, you can co-host one show, 2 shows, or an entire month of shows, and which is 4 since we are weekly, of course. And it's just you and me and one other guest, and we'll be talking Star Wars and running the show, so you'll get to see what goes on and how to make this podcast happen each and every week and be a part of the creative process and what topics we come up with. There are a lot of great opportunities there. So if you're interested, please email me at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com or check out our Patreon page, which you can find on our show notes and at the top of our webpage. Thank you so much. We are
are back, and we are here with the Director of Marketing for Stern Pinball, Zach Sharpe. How are you doing, Zach?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing fantastic. We are very excited to have you here as a guest on Coffee with Kenobi, and you are in charge of something that has been a part of Star Wars, honestly, since the late 70s. And, of course, I'm talking about pinball. Tell us, if you would, kind of about your experience with Star Wars before we get into the amazing pinball machine.
Sure. So, my experience with Star Wars, just like as a child, it's easily one of my favorite films of all time. I don't think, most kids my age, there's not many other better films out there than the Star Wars universe. And, with the new movie coming out, it's just exciting to see Star Wars in general, transcend to a new audience and generation.
Oh, I agree with you. It's something that's been with us for such a long time, and it offers so many different opportunities. And when we first started speaking about this, you are in charge of something that's pretty remarkable. And can someone be enigmatic for people? Talk to me about what's so perfect about combining Star Wars and pinball.
Well, pinball is amazing. It's the most fun you can have with a machine. I know there's a lot of video games out there, but there's something about a physical nature of pinball that just can't be replicated. And when you marry that with a license of Star Wars, speed, adrenaline, ramps, loops, orbits, an exploding Death Star, it is the perfect marriage of a license and a pinball machine in one.
What are some of the things that go into this particular machine as far as things that we'd recognize as Star Wars fans?
Sure. So for this pinball machine, it's based on the original trilogy. So episodes 4, 5, and 6. You had the famous John Williams music, of course.
Yes.
There's 16 missions, but at the start of a game, it's really unique rule set where you can choose your hero. So you can choose between Luke, Leia, Han, or R2-D2. And as you progress through the game, you're going through all of the different missions and modes from the movies throughout all those 3 original movies. So it's really cool to, fight TIE fighters and have a TIE fighter multi-ball, trying to explode the Death Star, a lightsaber duel. There's actually even a video mode in the game where you're navigating an asteroid field in the Millennium Falcon. So, all the iconic scenes from the game are implemented.
That is so cool. It must be kind of awesome to have to take, this amazing tapestry of Star Wars and narrow down some key moments that you think would be best represented in a pinball experience. And because this is definitely an experience.
Oh, it's an experience. And the one great thing about pinball in general is it's never the same experience twice. So I know with a lot of video games, kind of set patterns are predetermined, where with a pinball machine, at the end of the day, gravity always wins and, you'll lose your ball. But it's in those moments while you're playing where something unique or different will happen every single time you play.
Oh, definitely. What are you guys? As I've been told, Zach, you are something of an expert in pinball.
Yes, maybe I'm somewhat humble / embarrassed, but no, I'm currently the number 1 ranked pinball player in the world. So
that's incredible.
There's pinball tournaments going on all over the world, and if you go to IFPApinball.com, so that's the International Flipper Pinball Association. There's sanctioned tournaments going on all over the world. Even as we speak right now, I am sure there's a tournament going on in Hungary or somewhere over the world. And I just happen to be very good at, defying gravity as long as possible.
You and Michael Jordan, right?
Yes. Well, being from Chicago, I take that, with the utmost compliment. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm in the middle of the state, so I definitely am a big fan of Jordan. Oh, the Bulls are nothing to be super excited about these days, but we'll talk more about pinball because that's way more happy and more fun anyway. So how does one go about becoming the number 1 ranked player in the world? That's incredibly impressive.
Yeah. I don't know it's my background in sports where I just deal with pressure pack situations pretty well. I like to equate it to shooting a high pressured free throw, but constantly, because with pinball, you're constantly trying to successfully shoot free throws. But the more you play and the more you're put in these situations, the more comfortable you get. So, I've been playing competitively since I was 13. So, you lose more often than you win. So it's dealing with those defeats and ultimately having fun. I think I don't put pressure on myself and I just have fun, and that makes losing okay. And I don't put pressure on myself and I'm able to execute more often than that.
Right. Oh, that's just a good metaphor for just anything that you're passionate about anyway, is practice and experience and not being afraid to fail. I'm interested that you said that you lose more than you win. That speaking of sports, is very much a baseball metaphor.
It's kind of, not to get cheesy, but, using the force, you want to have like the light side with you when you're playing. You don't want to get angry and have anger, flow through you, because then you might tilt the game and then you lose.
Exactly. Well, hey, cheesy is a good thing on Coffee with Kenobi. In fact, it goes very well with coffee, I got to say. At least it has for our show. Now, so when we were planning this, we were promised that you would give us some tips, because here's the thing I run into with pinball, and I'm sure I'm like 99% of the population who plays pinball. There's just that moment where the ball's going to that section at the bottom where it's going to go behind the flippers and you're out of luck. But you're the number one ranked player in the world. Something tells me you're able to circumvent that. Now, is this asking like a magician to tell us how he does tricks, or what do you think?
Oh, no, absolutely not. And the great thing with technology now, with like tournaments being streamed live, you can see what good high-level players are doing while they're playing. But I kind of have, 3 rules of thumb to help, improve your play. 1, if you don't know what you're doing when you go up to a machine in terms of, what you're going to shoot for, I always say shoot the flashing lights. These programmers and game philosophy as a whole, these machines tell you kind of where you should be shooting. If something is flashing and it's showcasing, this right ramp, if you shoot this, something good's going to happen, shoot that right ramp. If the left orbit isn't lit, shooting it probably won't get you many points. The other thing, don't be afraid to shake the machine. So as you're saying,
really,
if you see the ball going down the middle or out one of the out lanes, don't be afraid to give it a shove. Shake it. These games were built to be able to, be kind of shucking around. There's a tilt mechanism in a machine. So if you shake it too much, you'll get warnings. And if you shake it too much, it will tilt. It's what's called a tilt. It will kill the power to your flippers and your ball will be over. So there is a risk reward component, because if you tilt, you lose your bonus, which, if you had a long ball, you can accumulate a lot of points. But say that you had a really short ball, there's no risk in tilting if you're able to save the ball. So for me, it's kind of being able to push that tilt balance, which helps me save a ball, where if you're not really proactive and you just let the ball drain, you're just going to watch it drain, versus me, I'm going to try to put some English or influence on the machine to move the trajectory of the ball to keep it in play longer than if I did nothing.
This is fascinating to me. I've always known that the word tilt was associated with pinball, but I didn't realize it was actually not just something fun and hyperbolic. It's actually a real aspect of the game. I had no idea.
Yeah. And in high level competitions, these tilt settings are set extremely sensitive, because, the better players get, if they're able to move the games around, I wouldn't be able to talk to you right now because I'd still be playing a game if I'm able to, shove it around and save it. So ultimately, I mentioned gravity will win, and that's how I can talk with you, because, my games and anyone else's games do end, but it's, those moments that you can make within it to try to keep it alive as much as possible.
Sure.
One other tip. Oh, no, go on.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, especially if you're able to play some games on free play, otherwise it might cost you a little bit more. It's going to sound counterintuitive, but play one-handed. I know it's going to sound like, well, how am I going to play one-handed? It actually helps you anticipate where the ball is going to bounce. So one of the flipper tricks that's really good to becoming a better player, again, it sounds counterintuitive, do nothing. I know it sounds like, well, why wouldn't you just hit the ball with the flipper? When you become a better player, the element of control trumps everything. You want to get the ball under control, because if you're able to trap it, you can map out your shots. You can take a breather. You can see what the screen is telling you what to shoot for, versus wildly flailing, hitting the flipper buttons. The ball will just fly around and eventually drain, and then you don't have like a sense of purpose, so to speak. When you play one-handed, you can, say that you have your right hand on the right flipper button and you see the ball is going to the left flipper. I already know that if I do nothing, the ball is going to bounce over from the left flipper over to the right flipper. So I won't even need to move my hand from the right flipper to the left flipper button. So it sounds like a little more complicated as I speak it. What's that?
It sounds a little bit like tennis or ping pong, kind of, in a way.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, there's a lot
to learn the rhythm of the ball. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, or even like pool or golf, just knowing your trajectories and where and how the ball will influence with your object.
I think this is amazing. I'm sure people are going to love hearing this, because it's fascinating. I think pinball is one of those things that has been around for so long that people don't realize the intricacies and the level of skill that is required to really be something special. And it's special that we've got this marriage again of Star Wars and pinball. If money were no object and Lucasfilm gave you carte blanche to do whatever you wanted, what would be your dream Star Wars pinball machine?
Oh, geez. That's a good question. I mean, I think the Star Wars machine that we made is pretty incredible.
It is. If it's what I'm thinking of, it is awesome.
Yeah, if money was no object, I mean, I would have the full pinball machine shaped like the Millennium Falcon that you can like sit in and play and control. But now I'm just going completely, overboard. And the flipper buttons could be influenced with like a lightsaber type control. I don't know. I'm just going off the rails here, but yeah. I mean, it'd be like, if it was money was no object, I would have, a physical large Death Star that you can fight.
Wouldn't that be amazing? That
would be amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited. So if I want to play this, so how do I find these machines?
There's a lot of good resources. So where are you located?
I'm near Peoria, Illinois.
Okay. I know that there's this great resource called pinballmap.com, and it kind of has locations all around the world of where machines are on location.
Okay.
Like, I know there's a lot of machines on location. I mean, it's not super close, but in Champaign, Illinois, Joliet has a little arcade. Of course, Chicago is home of a huge arcade boom. So there's a lot of emporiums and other barcades that have, games from all eras, including all of our newest games.
Well, this is cool. We're going to put links to this in the show notes. Really, really exciting. And again, Star Wars is just that unique franchise that is able to reinvent itself for any avenue, any type of entertainment or engagement. And this is an awesome marriage. Thank you, Zach, so much for being a guest on Coffee with Kenobi. Where can people reach out to you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
If they want to reach out to me directly, zach.sharpe@sternpinball.com. So that's ZACH.SHARPE@sternpinball, STERNPINBALL.com. And I would be glad to talk pinball, Star Wars, you name it.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you on again sometime and just be a co-host with me and just talk Star Wars the entire hour.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome. Zach, thank you so much. We will take a break and come back. Tom will have the news. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Greetings. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
The Star Wars Wars digital card trader collecting app features incredible images from many aspects of the saga, including the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. It's the quality you have come to expect from Topps. It's also easy to get into and really fun too. Your favorite Star Wars characters, scenes, and moments are in every pack. To get started, download the app for free from iTunes or Google Play, and then be sure to open the app each day for free credits to spend on card packs from the Cantina. Plus, if you can't get what you're looking for, there's a place to trade with your friends as you complete your Star Wars collection. And if you're an experienced collector, there are exclusive cards, special inserts, and autograph opportunities for you to enjoy. Don't worry about missing the cards and sets you want either, as you can sign up for notifications right on the app. The Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps can be downloaded for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to download the app and start your collection today. The Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is available now. And remember, these are the cards you're looking for.
We're back, and it is time for some Star Wars news, which means Mr. Tom Gross is with us. Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dan?
Awesome. We were talking a little bit before about the fact that we're so close to The Last Jedi. How are you feeling these days?
Anxious, excited.
Yeah.
God, I don't even know. I was talking to some students today, and one of the students said, "Mr. Gross, it is so far away." And I said, it's a week from, it's a week from this Friday. That's way too far away right now. so I mean, we're all feeling it. It is so great. And, a couple of my news stories tonight have a little to do with that getting close feel.
Sure, take it away.
Let's do it. Well, first we're going to start, though, with Rian Johnson talking about his new trilogy of Star Wars movies that he will write that is actually going to be the first trilogy not to have a story about the Skywalkers. And he's been listening to fan suggestions, including some ideas from, well, if you missed it, Jimmy Kimmel on ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live. It seems, though, that the popular vote is for an Old Republic-era story on the popular Knights of the Old Republic video game from 2003. But Johnson doesn't feel that is quite compelling enough. He said he loves the Old Republic era, but he is interested in what new stories can be told. And, we shouldn't be surprised by this news, though, because when the introduction was made, Johnson said that they would, quote, introduce new characters from a corner of the galaxy that Star Wars lore has never explored before. Now, he's excited about the prospect of a story told in 3 movies that can go anywhere, do anything. The sky's the limit. And Johnson says that he's in the very, very beginnings of starting to conceptualize the story. So he doesn't quite know what it will be about yet.
I heard it was going to be about the origins of the Porg myself, but...
Oh.
Thank you.
From Porg to eternity.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No, to be honest, though, I have to say I'm glad that it's not going to be about the Old Republic, because like a lot of people, I like the Old Republic stories and characters, and some of those Sith and whatnot. It's a lot of fun. I played the Old Republic game that's out now, the massive online multiplayer, and that's a lot of fun. But I think for Star Wars to really grow and to get new stories, I think we really need to branch off into something new, that's something completely different, because one of the dilemmas, and Dave Filoni talks about this a lot, is in Star Wars Rebels, they want to do something new, but at the same time, they want to bring in some of the old characters like Hondo and whatnot, and it's hard to escape that because people want to know what happened. But if you do too much of that, the universe gets too small. And I think sometimes the Star Wars universe does seem a little bit too small, because we're always getting the same characters woven back in. And I think if Rian can create something completely new that we've never seen before in another area of the galaxy that we've never visited, that will give us so many more locations and characters and story threads to do, new novels and new comic books and things that don't necessarily have anything to do with the stuff that's available now. So I think that's more exciting to me.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, as much as I love the Skywalker story and all the characters that we've had developed so far, something new is awesome. I mean, seeing the new characters that they developed for Rogue One was incredible, and just knowing we could get a whole trilogy of new characters is great. I'm really excited to see what he develops and comes up with.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I've said it many times before on the show. It's a big galaxy. It's a big galaxy, and we don't have to have one story about one family. As wonderful and captivating as that story has been, I go back to imagine the other stories that can be out there to be told. Well, I'll move on to our next story. This Saturday, before the highly anticipated world premiere of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, StarWars.com will be live streaming the red carpet event. Hosted by the Star Wars show, Andy Gutierrez and Anthony Carboni, joined by Dave Collins. The red carpet live stream from Los Angeles will start at 5 p.m. Pacific time and include conversations with the stars and creators of Star Wars, as well as celebrity superfans and the Star Wars community, of course. We can catch all the live stream on StarWars.com, Star Wars YouTube channel, or the Star Wars Facebook page.
This is the real challenge, and Adam was actually talking about this on Twitter over the past 24 hours. But once that premieres, and of course, I mean, we'll all be glued to the live stream because that's amazing. But once that premieres, we're on an extremely slippery slope because that means it's going to be out there. People will have seen the movie, and it's going to be really, really dangerous to be on social media. What kind of approach are all of you taking, and will you be watching the live stream?
It really is. It really does become a minefield. I will watch the live stream because they always, the gang there always does a really good job, and it's a lot of fun. But I know in years past, once the premiere happens, until I actually get to see the movie, I kind of drop off of social media. I go on to do my posts, and I'll read if somebody communicates to me, but I try as hard as I can not to really skim, my Twitter and Facebook feeds, because inevitably, somebody just says too much. They say something that I don't want to know. But even at this point, I'm not watching commercials and new trailers and stuff. After the first I watched the first major full trailer, and after that, I stopped watching the stuff because inevitably there's little things I just don't want to know.
I'm pretty much doing the same. I will watch the live stream to hear what everybody has to say. See David Collins on there, and Andy and Anthony. I love those three. They're three awesome people. But as soon as it's over, I'll pretty much go on a blackout for the week until I see it. And probably the first post you'll see from me afterwards is "Wow."
What about you?
Speechless.
Yeah, I'll be the same. It'll be tough getting news next week, but so I'll do a little bit of skimming and checking sources that I trust to not traditionally spoil. But generally, I'll be off social media for the most part.
I've actually temporarily unfollowed all the major entertainment media outlets. I don't want to say which ones because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings that I might know that writes for them. But and that doesn't protect me entirely because people are going to retweet things and repost stuff, and I'm still going to end up seeing that. But it does help thin it out quite a bit, and I'll just follow everybody after I see the movie.
Well, as we're all stepping away from our social media, we may be looking for something to while away the anxious minutes as we approach opening night of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. So, how does bringing the First Order's Dreadnought Star Destroyer to your living room in full augmented reality fun sound? Well, how, you ask? Well, make sure your Star Wars app is updated to at least a 2.5 or higher, and head to starwars.com to download and print the scannable image that will bring an augmented reality version of the destroyer to your favorite screen right in your living room. Get all the details you want about the Dreadnought, then you can witness a full-blown battle with the Resistance. I don't know, guys. This sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. It's remarkable the amount of things we can do with technology. And boy, I sound like I'm an old man sitting on the porch of a rocking chair yelling at squirrels. You darn squirrels. But I think this is so cool. I mean, this and, this is basically like that augmented reality that they did for Force Friday, right? Or is it kind of a step above that even?
Haven't personally done it yet, but it's right around the same lines. And I just keep going back to the first time we had that poster that you would scan and BB-8 would hoot and whistle and roll back and forth. That was so cool. I'm so glad that they're continuing to do this.
Did you say he would hoot?
Yeah, I don't know what he does.
Hoot?
I did say hoot, like an owl.
Have you guys seen this thing?
Well, I love the Force Friday thing they did with all the standees. So, but I haven't seen an example of the new one that they're doing. But if it's anything like that Force Friday thing, I think that it'll be really great. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. There's cheats to those too. I haven't seen the instructions of what it is you're supposed to do, but I know like with the standees that were out for Force Friday, you could just aim your phone at an image on your computer screen and get the same thing, but it messes with the proportions a little bit. If you're doing it on your computer screen, you just get a little figure on your, on top of your desk, rather than a full-sized, character if you did it in the store. So there's probably cheats, so you don't have to actually print it out, but probably printing it or following the instructions will get you the best results, I'm sure.
Always fun to be had with Star Wars. Well, Tom, thank you so much. When you are on next week, of course, besides being show 101, we'll be within 24 hours of seeing the movie, which is, man, I can't even imagine the amount of news we're going to have for that.
Wow.
It's going to be fun.
We'll go ahead and take another break, and when we return, we will discuss the conclusion of Phasma. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee, tea, or me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi was also sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and now The Last Jedi. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. We are back, and with this coffee break, we are concluding our CWK book study for Phasma. We started this a few months ago with Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and then transitioned into Phasma. It's been quite a journey, and each week has certainly had me pressing to make sure I got my reading in, because I wanted to make sure it was finished for all of you, because I made you a promise, and I plan on keeping that, and we have. Phasma has promised to leave us more information about this character, and as I've been saying throughout this book study, at the beginning, I pretty much read it because I felt like I should, and because it was the latest book to come out, and I really wasn't that impressed with Phasma. And interestingly enough, I do feel stronger about it than I did before, but not as strongly as I did throughout this novel, if that makes sense. And I think I can explain it with the end of this. We started chapter 33, and it goes to 44, and then it's over. This is an interesting book, the way it was constructed, because some of the chapters were very short, and some were rather lengthy. So it was inconsistent and hard to figure out, much like Phasma for Cardinal, because essentially the end of this is the unraveling of Cardinal. He starts out this novel, and through, say, half the book probably, as this fierce, intimidating leader in the First Order,
And by this point, the more he learns about Phasma, the more he realizes that he's helpless to do anything about her. And that seems to be her MO throughout this book anyway. We very much see that it's not so much that she's pro-First Order, is that she is pro-Phasma and pro-constantly evolving and being at the very, very top of the food chain. The Phasma comic book shows this as well. Her loyalty lies to herself, and there's nothing she won't do. And we have a final flashback to her when she was a kid, and she's with her brother, who's very healthy, and he and Phasma, as well as other people in their small area of the Sire, are very much on the low end of the food chain, to continue and extend that metaphor that I said before. And now they want to get out of it, and he says basically, look, I'd rather die than have to deal with this. And she says, are you sure? And he says yes. And then she stabs him in the leg, in the calf, which ultimately leads to him having to have it amputated, as we know. And there was a little bit of initial reflection on this, and basically alluding to the fact that the air is so diseased that if you have any kind of injury, it could be fatal. It could lead to amputation, and that's what happens. But it didn't have to happen. Phasma made it happen, and then she ends up, what it seems like, is she helped institute the death of her parents so that she and her brother could be in charge on the Sire and very much leading. So this is Cardinal's last bit of evidence. He thinks that he can use this to explain and unravel the legend of Phasma for the First Order. But Hux, Armitage Hux, the son, doesn't really care. He knows what Phasma is like, and he's very much okay with it. In fact, he perpetuates it. He encourages it. He is very much an enabler of Phasma. And Cardinal just can't take it. This thing he's been fighting for his entire life is just unraveled before his eyes. Everything he thinks he's been fighting for is just different. It's not the same as Anakin's fall from grace and his disillusionment with the Jedi, but there are some similarities there. Not a lot, but enough to make you realize there are some interesting connections. So he loses his place, he loses his status. We learn that he continues his relationship with the cadets. He knows their names. He knows their likes and dislikes. He knows how to encourage them. While he's tough as nails, they go to great lengths to discuss his physical prowess and the amount of push-ups and pull-ups he can do, things of that nature. He is very much someone who relates to his students as people, even though that's something the First Order doesn't encourage, hence the name. In fact, there's a powerful moment where Cardinal is not allowed into a First Order meeting, which usually was one of his favorite things, because they would tell him how nice of a job he was doing with the cadets and how much of a credit he was to the First Order. And then Armitage Hux tells him, look, you can't come into this meeting. And instead of calling him Cardinal, they refer to him as his number, which is a very, very poignant moment. In fact, they call him CD0922 instead of Cardinal, which is a sign to him, okay, I'm losing my place here. And he, as we've seen, he's got a relationship with V, a friendship. There's mutual respect there, albeit a very unusual sort of respect, but that's kind of what has been going on in this book anyway, a lot of unusual, awkward relationships that may or may not be beneficial for both parties. So she has no strength, but he's still helping her. He removes all the shackles and torture instruments, and basically he kind of forgets about her for a while, or at least the narrator forgets about her for a while. And he goes and he has the original dagger that Phasma used to cripple her brother, as well as to kill him, and all the other damage she had done. And he also has one of the beetles from Parnassus, and those are his secret weapons. But since he's not allowed a meeting with the First Order and Hux and everyone else, he says, all right, I'm just going to have to take matters in my own hands. He goes, and confronts her, and she basically poo-poos his constraints as far as how he thinks he should train. She says, yes, these are great. These are excellent for demonstration purposes, but there's no comparison to actually fighting for your life. And we learn that Cardinal really has never been in war, never really been in battle. He's clearly a fierce warrior and is more than a match for most people in the galaxy. But Phasma's been fighting for her life, and he comes to that realization. So they fight. It's a pretty intense duel, but it's not very long. She makes quick work of him, leaves him battered and broken, and calls him a coward and very much dismisses him. He passes out. When he wakes up, V is there, and she basically helps get him to safety. And we don't know what happens with them, but we know that they survive. And we also see at the very, very end there's another flashback. The final one is at the very last end of the chapter, or of the book, and it's Phasma going back to Parnassus a year after leaving and using the equipment that was there from the droids that had recently held her captive on Constar, and she uses their tools to basically make her armor from the Emperor's initial ship that he used in Return of the Jedi. The Emperor's, oh no, I'm sorry, it's not Return of the Jedi, it's the Emperor's Naboo yacht. So that is where she makes her armor from to make it unique and clearly symbolic because it's a part of the Emperor and the Empire and that legacy. She had become Captain Phasma of the First Order and nothing could stop her. That is how the book closes. That is the last line of it. Before we conclude this book talk, I want to share another email that was sent to us by David Motters, who we always love hearing from. And he has some interesting insights into this book, as always, and we encourage you always to send in any thoughts or reflections you have, not only on book chats and future book chats that we have, but just any topics on Star Wars in general. And David writes, Masters Air, Padawan Motters here again. Wanted to make a few comments on these final chapters of the Phasma novel. 1. I can't stop thinking about the problem of greed and the lack of empathy, not only in the Star Wars universe, but in our lives today. In this book, Constar Mining Corporation is responsible for destroying what sounded like a beautiful planet in Parnassus. Ultimately, it led to the creation of the cancer that Phasma has become. I like that, David. That's definitely what she is. In our world today, just watch the local and national news to see greed and a serious lack of empathy. Are we creating potential cancers in our culture? Probably so. 2, I am glad Cardinal and V survived to fight another day. A slight bit of positivity on the Resistance side. It will be interesting to see if the Story Group and Delroy Books want Delilah S. Dawson to write another book with these characters. 3, I really enjoyed Chapter 44, in which we finally get the backstory on how Phasma created her iconic armor. Phasma has some seriously bad mojo going on in her armor, seeing that it is made of metal from Palpatine's shuttle. So many thoughts, but need to stop so you can finish the podcast. P.S. I'm still not eating skin wolves, never. Congrats on 100 episodes of Coffee with Kenobi, and looking forward to another 100. Take care, David. Well, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate that, as always. The end of the book was interesting, as I mentioned a few moments ago, but honestly, I was a little underwhelmed with the ending. The build-up was so strong and so great. The end of it was very much about Cardinal and his journey, which is fine. Cardinal's an interesting character, and I enjoyed learning about him. But I think Phasma is the draw here, and the fact that she takes a back seat and becomes a secondary character instead of the main focus of the novel, because really she is the main character. And that was a little disappointing to me. Overall, I still enjoyed the book. I would say it's in the top third of the Star Wars books in the new canon. And I don't know why I always say new canon. It's not the new canon. This was always the canon. It was even said so by Steve Sansweet the very first time he came on Coffee with Kenobi. So, with that being said, I enjoyed this book. I probably liked it more than Leia, Princess of Alderaan, because I thought it was just very intense and eye-opening. And as much as I learned about Leia, I learned a lot about Phasma. But then at the end, as it sort of regresses as far as where she is spotlighted, it made me almost as confused about her as I was at the beginning, but with new respect on her prowess, her might, her ability to overwhelm a situation, and again, as I've said multiple times, my serious dread of her facing Finn in The Last Jedi. So we will go ahead and take our last break and return with your emails. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is
Before we close out the show, I want to thank our CWK sponsors, Penguin Random House Audio and the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. Please support them in the way to support our podcast, and remember to listen to new and archive shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Spreaker, Overcast, Blog Talk Radio with their mobile-friendly app, Player FM, our Coffee with Kenobi website, www.coffeewithkenobi.com, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. And if you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and Tumblr, and we'd love for you to check us out there.
And while you're at it, be sure to listen to our CWK family of shows too, including Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. Please leave a review for each of their shows as well, and be sure to subscribe to each of them individually, as they all have their own iTunes feeds right now.
We have an amazing email from Christo Hadding, who has written us a review on Star Wars Battlefront 2 that I'd love to share with you. Christo writes, I am very happy to report that I adore all that Battlefront 2 has to offer. The multiplayer experience has been refined, and we are presented with a deep, thrilling single-player campaign that allows us deeper into a galaxy a long time ago, far, far away, torn apart by war in the time between the fall of the Galactic Empire and the rise of the First Order. I've played about 25 hours of the game so far, and so this will cover my thoughts on the experiences so far, and not necessarily a full review. The single-player campaign of Battlefront 2 follows Inferno Squad Commander Iden Versio from the destruction of the second Death Star to many diverse, surprising, and exquisitely rendered locations and situations beyond. Janika Vonkar plays the role of Iden very well, and the supporting cast members are engaging and memorable. The voice acting is top-notch, and as mentioned before, the graphics in Battlefront 2 really add to the overall experience. There is a lot in this campaign for older fans who love all the extra references and Easter eggs, but it is also an accessible story which won't stifle new fans with too much information. The destruction of the second Death Star is handled with the necessary gravity, to the point where even the staunchest of Rebel supporters may acknowledge the pain of those on the side of the Empire. One does not get the impression that either side is placed on a pedestal free from faults. I greatly admire the ambition here to add the Empire side to the story, a side which we have not explored in such depth before. The single-player campaign also serves as a lower-pressure way to introduce new players to all the game's shooting and flying mechanics. The mechanics in shooting and taking cover are standard for a first-person shooter games. There are various points where you can access and try out different weapons, and Iden's droid adds a fun, if not fundamentally game-changing aspect to taking out enemies. While there is some flying in the single-player campaign, I absolutely love the starfighter battles in multiplayer mode. The flying mechanics have been revamped from the previous game, and the various space battle maps support incredible attention to detail. Fighting around Kylo Ren's ship, the Finalizer, is a particularly memorable experience. Speaking of Kylo Ren and the other heroes, there are a fantastic reward if you can stay alive and rack up battle points. These battle points can be spent on a ship such as the Millennium Falcon, piloted by Han Solo and Chewbacca on certain maps, and Rey and Chewie on others, Yoda's Starfighter, and Kylo Ren's TIE Silencer. Good luck when you run into one of those ships. They dominate the field of play once unlocked. My favorite ship thus far is Poe Dameron's X-Wing Black 1. Sporting immense offensive abilities, the best part happens when you take out an enemy and BB-8 happily chimes his approval. The ground battles in multiplayer have also been reworked, with different locations and objectives from the previous game. You can choose from different classes to play as, from heavy troopers to officers. Just as in the space battles, earning enough battle points allows you to unlock some of the special classes or the heroes when you save up enough points. Darth Maul and Rey are two particularly powerful characters in their right hands. When used judiciously, it will wreak havoc. The initial wonder of the game is enhanced by the fact that all three eras are playable in both ground and space battles. Nothing beats shooting down droid fighters while flying around a Republic Venator ship. On the matter of microtransactions, EA announced that they have been suspended all microtransactions in the game for the time being. This means that all the extra weapons, components, and character skins you unlock will be tied to your gameplay progression. The transactions will probably return at a later date, but for now you do not have to worry about them. I think we should commend EA for listening to fan concerns and feedback and acting so swiftly to address them. As opposed to the previous Battlefront game, the developers have said that upcoming new content for the game, including no locations, characters, and character skins from The Last Jedi, will all be available to all players because they don't want to split the community into the haves and have-nots. All in all, Battlefront 2 improves on their predecessor by every metric. If you are a Star Wars fan, I cannot recommend it highly enough. I play on Xbox One, and I haven't encountered a visual or audio bug yet. The graphics are right at the top end of what a game should be looking like in 2017, and the sounds we associate with all things Star Wars make the experience deeply immersive. For those new to Star Wars or even video games, make Battlefront 2 your introductory experience. You will not be disappointed. Well, Christo, that was an amazing review and probably the most glowing recommendation I've heard so far on Battlefront 2. And as a side note, you can really write, my friend. If you ever want to propose a guest blog post, let me know because we would be happy to publish your amazing work. Thank you so much for this awesome review, for your patience, and for being such an awesome contributor to not only Coffee with Kenobi, but Star Wars fandom in general. And after this, if you're on the fence about Battlefront 2, I think this is the green light that we've been waiting for. A big thank you to Adam Bray and Aaron Harris for joining us today. Where can listeners get in touch with either of you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello? And definitely feel free to plug anything you have going on.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, sure. People can follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I'm at author Adam Bray for both social media outlets. And let's see, if you're in northern Michigan, I have a book signing for the Star Wars premiere weekend. That'll be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Petoskey Cinemas in Petoskey, Michigan. And as far as books, I've got a whole bunch of new books this fall that are in stores and on Amazon now that you can check out. My next books, which haven't officially been announced yet, but I'll say they're coming out next spring. So be on the lookout for some announcements from me that'll be very exciting.
Awesome. We will be following your career with great interest.
Thank you.
And I don't mean that in a Palpatine sort of way. And Aaron, of course, one song of the wonderful Rebels reactions, but I'm pretty sure this is not going to be the last we've heard of Aaron Harris.
Well, I hope not. Yeah, we're on Rebels Reactions is on hiatus right now for the holiday break, but after New Year's, we will be back with the final episodes of Rebels. So it's a bittersweet time over there at Reactions. So we're looking forward to seeing what happens, but not looking forward to the end. You know, it's one of those give and take relationships right now. We want it, but we don't. So, but yeah, it's fun. You can, of course, check out Rebels Reactions on Twitter at Rebels Reactions. Of course, we have our own iTunes feed, so you can just search out Rebels Reactions there and download all our past episodes while you're waiting for the remainder of season 4 to come around. Of course, if you want to get a hold of me, the best way is always through Twitter at TAHarris121079 is my Twitter handle. Or, of course, you can just email me. My email address is aharris@coffeewithkenobi.com. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Outstanding. We will definitely have links to all of these things on our webpage and show notes. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to and supporting Coffee with Kenobi and for contributing to Star Wars Conversation. We will be back next week with our The Last Jedi preview. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.